In this video, we're going to understand a little bit more about command line interface. To understand that, let's invoke the Google Cloud Shell, and to invoke that, go to this console.cloud.google.com, click on it, and then when the page loads, if you already have a Gmail account, you should be able to click on this Activate Cloud Shell button that you see here, and that opens up a Cloud Shell, which is a representation of the command line interface. Now, the command line interface is also called as the command language interpreter, CLI. It's also called as a command line user interface, or it's also called simply console. So whatever you see here, the Cloud Shell that is provided to us is a representation of command line interface. This is how we used to typically interact with the computer in the good old days, but nowadays you have many graphical user interfaces which are more visual, so a lot of people never really get to use this command line interface. Nevertheless, if you are planning to be a serious developer or a serious system administrator, then you should know command line interface, because that will make you that much more powerful when you're interacting with the computer. So how did it get that name? Well, this is how we issue commands to the computer so that computer can listen to us and execute our commands. So since it's a Linux box that is given to us by Google, we can use all Linux commands on this box. Now, one of the fundamental Linux commands is ls, which stands for listing. So it lists out everything that is there in the current directory. Now, how do you know what directory you're in? For that, you use pwd, which stands for present working directory. So if you enter, you will see that the present working directory is /home/Jayashree_Ravi_Raj. So the name that Jayashree_Ravi_Raj is because it is my name and it has come from the Google account that I created. So whatever is your name would be what would be shown here after the home. So home is common for all of us, but after that it creates a directory in your name so that becomes your home directory. So that's where you can keep your whatever is connected to your account. You can keep those files in that directory. So if you want to now see what are all there in the root directory, you can use cd/. Before we do that, let's actually see the difference between a graphical user interface of the file system and the command line interface way of dealing with the file system. To see that, let's click on this pencil icon, which launches the code editor on the Google Cloud Shell. So when it is fully done, you will see on the top part of this page, you will see the graphical user interface. So the graphical user interface is basically a visual representation of the file system. But of course, in this file system, there is nothing, it's empty. And also you can't really go to any other part of this file system. It only shows you one part of your file system. As here, you're actually allowed to go and see the files in the other directories other than your home directory. While here it is restricted, you really can't move anywhere other than your home directory, but here you can actually move around a little bit. So let's do that. So already you feel powerful with the console, don't you? Okay, let's do that. Let's go to the root directory. So how do we do that? You do cd, which is change directory, and / stands for the root. So that makes us go to the root directory now. We are actually changing the directory and going to the root. So we are in the root directory. So how do you know that you are in the root directory? Again, use the pwd command, which again stands for present working directory, which shows that you are in the root. Now, if you try to find out all the files which are there in the root, use the ls command, which show you all the files which are in the root directory. And again, there are so many files here. We are not supposed to do anything with any of these. And most of these are again executables. Executables are nothing but programs that we can run on the computer to do specific tasks. Almost all the folders here contain some kind of executable, but the bin, the S bin, and the user bin are some of the more commonly used folders which are containing all kinds of utility executables that pretty much what we need on a regular basis. So now let's go back to our home directory. So how do we do that? We use cd, change directory, go to the root, and then home, because that was a directory just before our name, and then put in your name. And when you do that, you just type in a few letters and then hit tab on your keyboard. It will fill up the rest of the name of your file if there is only one file which is starting from the few letters that you used. If you have more than one file with the few letters that you use, then you have two options. Either you key in more letters so that it is specific to the file that you're trying to access, or you choose between the many options that you're given. So anyway, right now we don't have a whole lot going on. So at the moment I keyed in a few letters and hit tab, it successfully able to fill in the file name for me. Now I hit enter, again do pwd, you're here in the home directory. So now I want to create a file. Let me create a file here using this graphical user interface because it is more fun to do so. It's a new file, my little program Java class my program. So this is a small program that I wrote. So that is inside my home directory. I created a file which is called as mylittleprogram.java, and this is the file content. And now if I want to see that file here, you will see that it's now showing. When I do ls, it's now showing the new file that just got created. Now supposing you want to now compile this file, you have to use javac, compile it. When you compile it, it goes and creates a .class file for us, and once it finishes, let's do ls again. Now you see that there is a class file also, but you also see that same class file here too. Now you see that my little program, this is your Java class. Your .class file is a bytecode. Bytecode is what the JVM understands, but we humans can't really understand this bytecode. So let's close this. Now you have two files here. Now if you want to create a directory, you can create a directory from here, which is mkdir. Of course, you can create a directory here too, which is really simple. File, new folder, will just create another folder or a directory. But if you want to create a folder from the console, then you would use mkdir. Let me close this. So you'll use mkdir, and let me call that as test. That is the new folder that I'm creating called test. Now you have a test folder showing up here too, but of course nothing is there inside that. So now if I want to copy over this my little program or this my little program.java, if I want to copy over into the test, of course you can just drag and drop. This is through the graphical user interface. It's really simple. But if you want to do that from the console again, what would you do? You would use the cp command. Cp stands for copy. So copy my little program.java into dot. Dot stands for whatever is from this current working directory. You're giving a relative path to the next directory that it should go to. So next directory that it should go to is test, and then you put a dot in. So the dot represents that you should keep the same name when you copy over the file into the test folder. That's what the meaning of the dot is. So now if you hit enter, you will see that in the test folder you have the same file which is copied over. So of course, if you had dragged this and dropped it in here, it would have moved the file. It wouldn't have copied, but it would have moved the file. But here, because we copied it, we have one copy outside of this folder and one copy inside of this folder. Now if you want to delete that in the test folder, let's go ahead and do that. So you can use the remove command for it. So remove, again, dot is basically meaning to say relative to whichever path that you're in. From there, go to one more folder from that relative path, and then give the name of the file, and then hit enter. So with that, you see now that it is removed. That file that is moved into the test is now gone. Now supposing you want to copy with a different name. If you want to copy with a different name, then you would do cp mylittleprogram.java and then dot test slash another name.java, let's say. So now it copied it over and then it gave a different name. If you had used dot, then it would have retained the same name. But now since you gave a different name here, it copied it over with a different name. So the content of this is exactly the same, except that it is having a different name here. So these are some of the fundamental commands that you should know. At least know where you are in the file system. Graphical user interface is fine, but you should also know a little bit about this command line interface as well, because we cannot use Java-C or Java from the graphical user interface. It has to be through the command line interface.